This week on Motor Week, Ginny drives the important Rover 75 and I get to drive the beautiful Audi TT.
Say the word Rover and what springs to mind is a faithful canine companion. One who always chases the postman, always fetches that stick and always turns up for dinner at the same time every day. It's what you call reliability. It has been a long time though since you could apply those levels of reliability to Rover the car. But apparently all that is due to change with the arrival of the new Rover 75. To say that this is the best looking Rover for absolutely years. In fact, it looks a little similar to the new Jaguar S-Type. OK, it looks very similar, but that isn't necessarily a bad thing. But putting the S-Type aside, you can see there's more than a hint of the old Rover P60. That's the fantastic classic that Her Majesty the Queen likes to drive around in. Now, besides the retro throwback that this car has obviously got, you get lots of lovely chrome, shiny trim, just a hint of curve in the right places, strong flowing lines, and check out these wonderful mirrors. Oh yes, this car will bring a misty tear to the eye of many a nostalgic motorist. And the interior is just as stylish as well. Rover have really gone all out to be very bold with this car, and I do think it works. There's a nice use of shapes and contours. There's generous use of wood here on the fascia and also on the dash, which houses 4 air vents and the passenger airbag. Now look how cleverly as well they've managed to combine the old and the new. You've got deep hooded dials that are based on a classic watch theme, but a very modern satellite navigation system and a digital onboard computer. In a nutshell, or should I say walnut shell, the interior oozes class and comfort. And if you're the creative type and want a little self-expression, then you could opt for the club or connoisseur packages. These give you the chance to choose your very own two-tone leather upholstery. It's all a bit too much for me though, I'm afraid. Now this is the 2.5 litre KV6 connoisseur model. Now it pulls off smoothly enough, but once it's underway it feels a little bit disappointing. The engine doesn't quite pick up as quickly as you would like. It feels a little bit lethargic. Now I haven't driven either the 1.8 or the 2 litre models, but the performance from this engine suggests to me that they may feel quite sluggish. But if it's not an extra kick of power that you're after, then the Rover 75 is a solid, reassuring drive. When you get the 75 up into the mid-range, it really does pick up, but it's not going to make the hair on the back of your neck stand on end. But it is good for cruising up the motorway or coasting along meandering country lanes. What equipment you get depends on what 75 package you go for, and there are plenty to choose from. And if it's extras you're after, then they're just there for the taking. Things like air conditioning, 15-spoke alloy wheels, an upgraded stereo, satellite navigation system, heated seats. The list goes on and on and on. But I have one question for Rover. Why, in a car that really is a luxury car, are there no electric windows for the rear passengers? The Rover 75 starts at just over 18 grand on the road for the 1.8 litre classic model, and that rises to around 26 grand for the 2.5 litre and the 2 litre V6. And that's good value considering the 3 litre V6 Jag starts at around 28 grand and the BMW 5 Series starts at around 25 grand. Back inside, the power steering uses servo-assisted racks with quick ratios. And what does all that mean, I hear you ask? Well, it makes the steering extremely responsive. It's light and it is very easy to handle. Yet it doesn't have any tendency to oversteer, nor does it pick up every single lump and bump on our lovely British roads. And the chassis on this car is very stiff, and when you combine that with the BMW rear axle, which has been especially designed for the 75, you get a kind of smooth, assured driving experience that's jolly nice indeed. The Rover is the kind of car you'd describe as solid. It's got a good engine, it handles well, it's certainly luxurious, and lots of effort has been made to return to the classic Rovers of the past. But there's still something missing. The ingredients are all there, but they just don't seem to complement each other. Now, whether you would like the 75 depends on what you want from your drive. If you want to make heads turn as you arrive in the executive car park instead of meandering in unnoticed, if you want to stroll instead of sprint, and if you want your interior to say more than your exterior, then it's probably worth a look. However, I can't see many creative types driving the 75, rather more your insurance brokers and middle management. And that's probably just the kind of market that Rover needs to attract if it's to retain that safe, solid and reliable image.
It all started when a bunch of Audi executives must have got a bit kind of free and easy and relaxed and said to their design team, "Here, what kind of sports car do you think we should be building?" And the design team came back with the concept that wowed the public at the 1995 Frankfurt show. The executives said, the public like it, we like it. Build it. There's just one proviso, we want the actual car to look like the concept car. And for once, that's what happened. The public saw the concept car, loved it, said build it for us, and that's what the public got, the TT Coupe. When they set out to design the TT, they decided to start with the wheels, which is logical enough, they are quite important on a car, and then to sort of stretch the bodywork over them. They'll tell you that it's a case of form following function, but there's no doubt that Audi wanted their new sports car to be pretty. You'd expect the build quality to be something special, and the TT does not disappoint. It feels like it's been hewn from one solid piece of aluminium, and the materials used inside and out are top quality. They're a textural delight. It's really rather difficult. What does a guy do? Criticise a car for being too good, or ask that the manufacturer engineers a few fundamental flaws into the design to make it a little more challenging and a little more personable? Well, no, you don't. Sure, this is more than capable of handling the 180 brake horsepower it has with this engine. The chassis and whole handling package could easily deal with the 225 brake version coming later, and more than that, in fact. But then this is emphatically not a hooligan car. It is a very, very good-looking car that also happens to drive rather well too. Sure, you may, after a while, tire a little of the bland, rather neutral handling characteristics and perhaps of the way in which it copes so adequately and completely with its power. But who could ever tire of a car that looks this beautiful? Once underway, it's no surprise, just one look at the car will tell you roughly how it's going to handle. It's very flickable, very turnable, direct steering, those minimal overhangs front and rear that give the car its shape from the outside, and more than just image. They actually serve the purpose of keeping all the weight between the wheels, which means it's much easier to control and you don't get any pendulum effects through the corners. And through those corners, Audi's extremely complex now four-wheel drive system, redistributing the power and traction to front or rear wheels according to demand, effectively operating as really a rather sophisticated traction control system, which is great. There's no doubt about it. It's very hard to chuck this car at the scenery. Very hard. There are occasions when you'd quite like to feel like you might be able to. In fact, I find myself thinking that it's a bit like a lot of life. You get given something only for it to be taken away. In this case, Audi give you an incredibly agile chassis based on the very popular A3. They give it a really good tractable engine, but then they give it so many technical wizardry and gizmos that you can't possibly get the thing into trouble. And you do find yourself after a while trying to get it into trouble and get the car out of shape. And try as you might, you can't. Whoever works in the neat finishing touches department at Audi has clearly not had much sleep over the past year or so. The thing is covered with them, and it all starts with the rather beautiful petrol cap at the rear of the car, operated by this little button here. And then you can't even cross the threshold without first encountering this beautiful little TT bash plate. And immediately we see the shape of the petrol cap with its Allen bolts around the edge reflected everywhere. For a start, in the door handle and in the lower part of the door handle as well. In the air vents on the side and in the centre of the steering wheel. Even little tiny ones in the middle of the needles in the centre of every single dial on the dashboard, in every single button across the middle, and all over the gear lever on the knob on top and the ring around the bottom of the thing. And it's details like that that make it very special. But it's more than just the little tiny details. The architecture of this cabin is just unforgettable. They went for the same basic fundamental taut kind of feel that they've got with the exterior of the car. So we have one plane going this way that's intersected by everything else coming this way. So we have these tubes finishing in the air vents with these kind of ribbed tops on them. The binnacle itself for the instruments is just perched and thrusting out of this thing with the steering wheel below it. And the transmission tunnel does the same thing, putting power down to the rear as well as the front wheels. And even details like these braces here, they're something to rest your knee against if you're cornering hard, but they are also there to brace the whole of the dashboard and stop you getting those horrible wobbly effects that you might get on a cheaper coupe. Audi expect the more powerful TT to be the big seller, with a split of 80% of sales going to the 225 brake horsepower version and the 180 brake version taking the remaining 20%. They only anticipate selling 1,000 in this, its first year. Next year, its first proper full year, they expect about 1,300. Pricing is fairly simple. There are only two versions. £26,000 will get you behind the wheel of the 180 brake horsepower version. £29,000 will get you behind the wheel of the more powerful 225. Optional extras are limited to pretty much a choice of bigger wheels on the smaller car, and that's it. After the break, Ian Royle drives the Peugeot 306 Rally.
There's no doubt about it. Having fun is what this car is all about. Yeehaw! The Peugeot 306 Rally was launched at the NEC Motor Show in October '98. Under the skin, it's basically the wonderful GTI 6, but it's been on the slim fast diet and had some unwanted weight removed. The acceleration is phenomenal, and that glorious rasp from the engine note just encourages you to be even naughtier. The brakes haul you down with parachute efficiency too. Overall, this car's setup has the compromise firmly biased towards the sports car. Compromise. At some stage, all production cars have to be a compromise between driver enjoyment and how easy they are to drive, particularly around town, say. And hot hatches will always be regarded as a little bit soft compared to out-and-out sports cars. For the Rally, items such as electric windows, air conditioning and heated door mirrors have been jettisoned. Overall, it adds up to a weight saving of 16 kilograms over the 306 GTI 6. And after all, who really needs electric windows? They're just a convenience toy, aren't they? I mean, this is what God gave us arms for, to wind our own windows. Well, I missed them, that's for sure. But back to that word, compromise. There's no doubt the 306 Rally is a real driver's car, particularly when you push it hard. But what if you're using it to just nip about the local town, go to the shops? How does it fare then? So I'm thinking, do I need second or third gear? And that's perhaps one of the problems with the Rally. It's got 6 gears, but around town, you'll just never use them. The brakes, which are excellent on the open road, are a bit hard, a bit snappy around town. The clutch is not the lightest in the world, and in my opinion, a touch sticky too. It's like a bulldog on heat, straining at its leash. Now, one thing we find with Peugeot 306s in general is the very poor turning circle, as you've just seen trying to get into tight spaces like this. However, I think that's no great sacrifice for the superb way that the car feels and steers when you're out on the road pushing it hard. Just depends whether you need to manoeuvre to get it into tight spaces like this at your local supermarket. So, the 306 Rally is right at home on great driving roads. Enthusiasts who bemoan the lack of soul and spirit in modern-day cars will absolutely rejoice in this Rally. Just don't buy one, though, if you only intend to use it for the shopping run.
Now, arriving at five-star luxury hotels is all about arriving in style. You might think that a helicopter pad and a helicopter could be the perfect way. I don't think so. If you give me the chance, I reckon I'd make a bigger impression turning up at the doors in my Bentley. £255,000. That's what it would cost you to buy this Bentley Sedanka Coupe. But this is a Bentley with a none-too-subtle difference. Bentley say they wanted to make the ultimate statement when they made this car, and that's why we've got this hideous burnt orange metallic colour. 50% of these cars are going to go to the Sunshine States of America, and you've guessed it, the old Yanks demand something very, very extrovert. But personally, I think the original Bentley boys will be turning in their grave. So what's it like driving a mobile fortune? First impression is of absolute comfort. It's like sitting on a large throne. It also feels frighteningly powerful. That's probably because it's got a 6.7 litre monster engine with 400 brake horsepower that will propel this 2.5 tons worth of metal from 0 to 60 in a frightening 6.1 seconds. Should you be allowed, it would also take you rapidly to 155 miles an hour. I was really apprehensive before I got in. I mean, 250,000, that's £250,000. To be honest, I was more than apprehensive. I was bloody scared. I mean, what if somebody bumps into you? But the fact is, everybody is paying homage to you. There's no navigation system. I mean, you even get one of those in a Vauxhall Vectra. That's optional in the Bentley, though. And I wouldn't have minded having a TV screen. You get one of those in a BMW 5 Series. Well, there's a herd of cows being sacrificed for the leather for this, and by God, though, it was worth it, because comfort-wise, I am just sitting in seventh heaven here. It is so relaxing. The only danger is you can imagine yourself nodding off. And as for the back, well, to be quite frank, there is no room at all, or very little. This is definitely not the Bentley you want to be chauffeured in. This is a driver's car, and this is the place you want to be. You don't feel too cramped, though, because you've got the ultimate sunroof. 2 removable panels, second sunroof for the people sitting in the back, and this Bentley converts at the touch of a button into a soft-top sports car. Incredible thing about Bentley owners is apparently the average one owns between 6 and 10 cars, including at least 2 supercars like a Ferrari and a Porsche 911. It's a hard life being a Bentley owner. Behind all the typically traditional Bentley wood and all the rest of it, though, this Bentley is an absolute aristocratic hooligan. Not surprisingly, you don't see too many Bentley owners doing the shopping, using them for the day-to-day things. So, anyway, here we are. Let's just park up. No wonder they don't like parking Bentleys at supermarkets. I've just found out why. At nearly 18 foot, they're a nightmare. You do realise, of course, that the Bentley badge is now actually no longer a Bentley, because, of course, it's owned by Volkswagen. Good news is that they intend, they say, keeping the badge and everything else about the car just so. What it'll mean, though, is they're going to invest £500 million of their money on a new model range of Bentleys. So that's it. I've had my amazing day as king of the road, but let's get back to reality. This car is still £255,000. For that, you could buy 6 people's homes here. So, do I want to be Mr. Sensible? I don't think so. What I really want is to keep my motoring fantasy.
Vauxhall are set to offer a range of special edition models to coincide with V registrations. Zero finance schemes will be offered on all but the Zafira Mini MPV. The Corsa and some of the Tigra range get a year's free insurance cover, and all Fronteras will also come with air conditioning at no extra charge. Nissan is to replace the base model in its Terrano range. Out goes the Extreme and in comes the S, complete with alloy wheels, adjustable steering, central locking, metallic paint and an immobiliser, all as standard. However, prices have risen. The Extreme costs $16,800, the new S $18,000. Nearly 7 out of 10 drivers speed in 30-mile-an-hour zones, according to the Department of Transport. On motorways, 55% travel faster than 70 miles an hour, with 19% topping 80 miles an hour. Next week on Motor Week, I drive the VW Bora. Ian Royle experiences the Seat Toledo, and Phil Sayer enjoys posing in a Volvo. Well, it is the C70.